Hello, everybody. This is Mornings with Michael for our Small Business Saturday Leaders. Welcomes Jeannette Robinson to the program. Jeannette is the Director of Investors Relations at Blue Lake Capital in Boston, Massachusetts. Ms. Robinson has been with Blue Lake Capital since April of 2019. Prior to that, she was the Interim Director of Texas Hands and Voices. Jeannette has kind of a storied career. She has a number of places that she's been with, mainly in IT consulting and staffing. And we'll try to get into that a little later. And she graduated from the University of Texas, El Paso, and also went to Howard Payne University for Applied Arts and Science. Without any further ado, Jeannette, welcome to the program. We're glad to have you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Blue Lake Capital?
Sure. So I'm the Director of Investor Relations with Blue Lake Capital. We are a multifamily firm, private equity firm, if you will. We specialize in identifying, owning, and operating different multifamily properties throughout the U.S. And we syndicate our deals. And so we have a large number of investors that actually partner alongside us in order to make that possible. And typically, what we do is we manage these investments for our investors until, our holding time is up, and then we sell the assets and repeat and repeat.
So you had mentioned something about real estate investing.
Correct.
Is that what you focus on?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, we buy pretty large apartment complexes. The buzzword is multifamily, but generally we buy apartment complexes that have anywhere between 200 to 600 units in them, and we partner with a number of investors in order to purchase those and manage those.
Wow, yeah, those are pretty big apartment buildings.
Yeah, they are.
So, can you tell us a little bit about some of? So you were the program coordinator at Astra, Deaf and Hard of Hearing Educational Advocacy Program.
Yeah, so my background is pretty eclectic. To kind of clarify a little bit, I started off doing basically executive headhunting, specifically in finance and accounting, and then IT. And my career ended up pivoting a little bit. And I also ended up having my own startup company for about 3 years where I did a lot of marketing. And from there, that actually led me into working in the nonprofit sector for a period of time. And Texas Hands and Voices is a nonprofit organization that specializes in providing support for families that have deaf and hard of hearing children.
Okay. Yeah, I also noticed that, we have a similarity. I worked in the underground construction area with the service companies for 2 decades, and I see you have worked as a consultant with Trotter and Morton with the HVAC company.
Yes. Earlier in my career, I really enjoyed my opportunity to just kind of try something totally different. And they specialize in commercial HVAC maintenance. And so I used to, many moons ago, but I used to actually climb a ladder and tear open some really large units.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Where was Trotter and Morton located?
The position that I was working was in San Antonio, Texas, but the company is actually headquartered out of Canada.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was in San Antonio, Texas I think about a year and a half ago, and we were helping a company replace for a state hospital, 300-foot sewer line. So we trained them on how to use the equipment and installation and everything. So
yeah, very important.
So what else? How did you get into investor relations at Blue Lake Capital?
Well, life throws some different challenges at us along the way, I guess is the best way to put it. So it's very interesting, but what happened was at the time I was working in both the nonprofit sector as well as with a large startup company. And unfortunately, my daughter became very sick, and she was only 14 years old at the time. And so it really, changed a lot of things for me in that moment when I realized that the gravity of her illness and that we were going to probably be in the hospital quite a bit. And so I had to very quickly shift my career and try to identify an opportunity of something that I could do remotely from a hospital. And this is, prior to COVID. So remote, positions really weren't very common yet. And that's, believe it or not, how I actually stumbled into real estate investing.
Oh, wow. And how's your daughter doing now?
She is doing better than she was, thankfully. It's been a long road. It's autoimmune diseases, which can be very challenging and take many years to correctly identify, and the treatments that go along with that. So it was a very hard number of years, the first few years that she had become sick. But thankfully, she's doing better. And we live in Boston, Massachusetts now. We moved from Texas to Boston, where Blue Lake has their headquarters, and the medical team out here has been fantastic for her. So it's been encouraging.
How old is your daughter now?
19.
19. Okay. And she getting ready to go to college?
No, unfortunately, when I say she was really sick, she was really sick. She is still sick. So no, that's just, she actually wasn't able to attend high school either. She ended up being homebound through most of her high school years, living in and out of the hospital. Now she's not in the hospital nearly as often, but she still has to be very cautious of how she uses her energy, and basically focuses primarily on her health and keeping up with her appointments and her treatments, and a strong diet, and a careful exercise regimen. And so yeah, you don't expect to have your children have to make those types of decisions, but they do sometimes. And that's one of the things that I really actually love about real estate investing, is it creates opportunity for people from all walks of life, including, people that have a very different path. So I'm hoping one day I can get her to take over some of the family business.
Well, that's great. Um, so can you tell us a little bit more about Blue Lake Capital? How many years has it been around? What is the focus? Has anything changed over that time? And just take it away.
Sure. Sure. Well, it's a very interesting time in real estate investing. Things have definitely changed over the last few years. The company has been in business for 6 years since inception, and we have about
Okay.
Yeah, we have about 850 million as far as transactional volume, how many apartments we've bought and sold. And it was a very good time for real estate investing a few years ago, when just simply because of a lot of different factors within the economy, there was tremendous growth and tremendous profits within the industry. Now there's still a tremendous amount of potential for investors within the industry, but not quite as significant as it used to be, because the economy is different. We're facing a potential maybe not recession. Interest rates have played a very critical role in how they have impacted overall returns for investors in real estate investments. So it's been, very interesting watching the Feds making their decisions about how they're increasing the interest rates. These have a lot of impacts along with inflation. And, it's just been very interesting. Real estate investing, there's never a dull day.
So when you had invested in these properties, were they like um, stabilized rate environment, or were they adjustable rate, or?
Yeah, no, good question. So, if basically, if you take into account and look at 2019, 2020, even 2021, the vast majority of loans that owners and operators of apartments would take out would be variable rates, because the rates were so incredibly low. No one in their right mind ever thought that we would see interest rates jump up to the levels that they have. I mean, it would have been kind of crazy to even expect that back during that time. And so that's definitely created some interesting challenges, for owner and operators that have those variable rate loans, because as the interest rates are increased, then obviously so are their mortgage payments. The way that that most of the owner and operators are able to navigate that, including us here at Blue Lake Capital, is we all purchase something called essentially a rate cap. And essentially it's kind of like insurance premium, if you will, that can only allow the mortgages to hit a maximum rate that we're having to pay month over month. But they're very expensive and they expire and things like that. And so thankfully, we were able to buy those and put those in place right from the beginning. And we bought them for an extended period of time. But there are other owner and operators that unfortunately either did not buy them at all or only bought them for a very short time and are running into some challenges needing to purchase, replacement caps, as they call them, which is creating, a lot of opportunity in the market for those that are investors to be able to identify some of those assets that are now struggling because they don't have the best financing in place. So it's unfortunate for those groups of investors, but it's also opportunity for the other investors that are looking for those types of opportunities. So it's very interesting, the dynamics, of how basically these investments play into the economy.
Yes. Yeah, and that's kind of what I've discussed on. I do have financial podcasts every morning, and periodically I kind of look at what's happening in the marketplace, and the fastest increase in interest rates in number of years. And it's, as we've seen, it's impacted the banking sector and commercial real estate. I think is also had a great impact on that as well.
Yes, very much so. No one projected that they would increase so high and so fast. And that's, created challenges. Thankfully, we're finding ways to navigate through them, but it definitely creates some choppy waters, especially for commercial real estate investing.
Exactly. So what do you do as head of investors relations?
It's a very fun and exciting role. So basically, I help to raise the capital for all of the deals that we buy. And so, actively raising funds from investors and, establishing those partnerships and then maintaining all of those relationships is a big bulk of how my days are spent. In addition to that, that also involves reporting. There's a lot of reporting mechanisms that come into place in order to make sure that investors are constantly up to speed with how the investments are performing, what the financials look like on those. That's another element of it. And then there's a portion of it that's also essentially marketing, which is, helping to stay in touch with investors, helping to stay top of mind with investors. So, for example, we talked about it before we started to air this episode, that we also have a podcast called Ready to Scale. It's a real estate investing podcast. And so initially it was hosted by our founder and CEO, Ellie Perlman, but I've taken it over the last year or so. And so I host the podcast. And so it's, it's fun, it's exciting. One of the things that I really enjoy about my position is I essentially spend all day, every day, being able to have conversations with incredibly successful people. These investors are all accredited investors. That means that they have a net worth of at least $1 million. Or there's some other nuances to that definition, but essentially that's what that means. And being able to just have the opportunity to surround myself with so many people that have been able to create success for themselves is very advantageous. There's a lot of wisdom to be tapped into and perspective to be tapped into when you get to be surrounded, by those types of people. It's very beneficial. I feel very grateful to be in the role that I'm in.
That's awesome. So you spent a good part of your career in Texas, and now you're in Massachusetts. Well, what are some of the things that you appreciate from moving up to Massachusetts? I know, it's beautiful scenery. Fall colors are incredible up there.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head right there. So I thought it was pretty amazing that I never experienced fall until the age of 40, which is when I had moved to Massachusetts. So it really is very nice having literally 4 different seasons. Texas is pretty much, summer, 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 and then a little bit of fall. And that's kind of Texas for the most part. So it's really nice just to have all 4 seasons. Definitely have really enjoyed that. I really actually enjoy the culture out here. It's very different than Texas, and I love Texas. I'm a Texas girl through and through. But I do find that the people generally out here tend to be more direct, and I actually find that refreshing. You know very quickly and easily where you stand with people. They're more direct. There's not as much Southern hospitality, if you will. So
Uh-huh.
people are very honest out here. But I actually enjoy it. I think it's great, and I enjoy the food. The water is absolutely beautiful. You know, being able to drive to multiple states in a single day is mind blowing to me, which of course in Texas, you don't really have that luxury. You can't even get across the state in a day. So yeah, it's been a very different world, but I really enjoy it.
Well, that's awesome. So, what is your plan? You plan to continue growing within the company? What's your plan with the investors? Do you look to grow for more investors and purchase new properties, possibly taking advantage of some other investors where may need to sell, or just give us kind of an overlook about that, about the company.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yes. So, you know, essentially, I'm the first employee of the company, and I'm very, very loyal to the company. It's been very exciting to see the company grow and scale out, and, you know, all of the team that we've been able to hire over the last many years. You know, the portfolio growing, the number of investors growing, all of those relationships, you know, being maintained, and the new ones being established. It's been very fulfilling. So I'm hyper loyal to Blue Lake Capital. So I definitely plan on continuing to stay here. Ultimately, our goal is actually to take the company public. So
Oh,
we have
wow. Okay.
we have very, very big goals, very ambitious goals, and I have a lot of confidence that you know, we'll be able to do it. It won't be easy. It'll take a number of years, but that is the goal. So yeah, we plan on continuing to expand the portfolio, continuing to expand our network of investors. We'll continue to buy properties, we'll continue to sell properties, and we'll continue to grow our team.
So where currently is Blue Lake Capital, the real estate, is it mainly in the upper Northeast?
No, that's a great question. So the majority of our portfolio is actually spread across basically Sunbelt markets: Texas, Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, Arizona. What we're looking for is basically low cost of living. We're looking for markets that are very candidly landlord friendly, you know, and don't have rent, you know, restrictions in place and things along
Okay.
those lines, because we often will go in and increase the rents after we've improved, you know, the properties. We're also looking for markets that have very diverse employers, major employers, but a diverse number of them. We don't want to rely on just one major employer in a market. And, you know, we're looking for, basically, we follow net migration patterns. We're looking for where people are moving to, where they're moving out of, and we follow those patterns. And then, you know, work with some AI data, you know, that helps us kind of understand what's projected for future trends and try to be, you know, a step ahead of them.
So net migration, that must be Texas, which is always in the news, people moving to Texas from California,
Yep.
and possibly Florida.
Yeah, very much so. There's, you know, it's really interesting. You would be surprised. Atlanta's an incredibly hot market. Atlanta has been rapidly growing as well. The Carolinas are becoming increasingly popular. Yeah, you know, and Texas, of course, definitely. And yeah, it's very interesting, and it fluctuates a little bit as well. You know, there was a massive migration from New York down to Florida during COVID. You know, and now some of that has begun to reverse a little bit, and people have started to tick back up north a little bit. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's like I said, it's never dull.
Yeah, we were in the Carolinas in December, and in South Carolina, there's a lot of building going on, um, big high-rise condos, that sort of thing. So I would think there would be some opportunity in those areas as well.
Yeah, very much so. We have assets in the Carolinas as well. Yeah, the cost of living is great. The quality of life is great. They're strong markets.
So you went to University of Texas El Paso. What did you study there?
I did. I actually started off at the University of Texas in El Paso. I actually was majoring in pre-med, ironically,
Oh,
microbiology. Yeah, but I actually ended up transferring my junior year to Howard Payne University, and ultimately I graduated from Howard Payne with, believe it or not, a bachelor's of applied arts and science in Christian studies, with my specialization actually in the Bible.
Well, where is Howard Payne located?
Howard Payne is based out of Brownwood, Texas, and then they have some satellite campuses throughout the United States. It's essentially a private Baptist university.
Okay. So you started at Robert Half. Well,
Yes,
what kind of don't they have a lot of really good training at Robert Half?
yes, they do. I really would say that Robert Half was essentially the springboard for my career for probably the next 5 to 7 years following that. They, are one of the largest international headhunting agencies. And so I worked there both from a business development standpoint as well as a recruiting standpoint. And it was excellent training. It definitely was a springboard in my career that led me into doing further executive headhunting throughout my career, both in finance, accounting, IT, a lot of different kind of industries. Yeah.
Yeah, you must be great in working with a variety number of people because of your background, and you had the Quick Fire Consulting. That was your own company that you started. Was that in headhunting as well?
No, it was actually very interesting. It was more in networking. It was actually finding a way to monetize networks and
Okay.
connections. And so, yes, I did that. And then, in addition to that, one of probably my highlights of my career was another startup company that I had for about 3.5 years called 10,000 Strong. I ended up doing that several years later, and it was phenomenal. It was a business focused on really empowering and supporting local military as well as veterans and their spouses and their families. My business partner was a retired Air Force general, and it was
Oh,
definitely
wow.
yeah, it did very well for the time being, in San Antonio. It was unfortunately something that I had to put on the back burner when my daughter got sick, but it was a huge passion of mine.
Well, what can you tell me about Y&L Consulting?
YNL Consulting is also an IT headhunting firm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so awesome. And how did you get introduced to the like Ellie Perlman? Was that through the headhunting or
You,
networking?
you
I'm
know,
just
you
really curious.
you would think so because I had then and I still have now, a tremendous network, but no, it really was just luck. She happened to post, for a basically a marketing based position. And at the time, I was looking for something I could do remotely that was what I thought would be very easy and low stress since I was, navigating hospital life with my daughter. And I thought, okay, this is something I can do with my eyes closed. And so that is actually how Ellie and I ended up working together. And it was supposed to just
Wow.
be, yeah, it was supposed to just be a small part-time social media specialist role, which obviously I was totally overqualified for. But it worked for me, it worked for her, and it did not last that way very long. I quickly ended up becoming the director of marketing and also overseeing director of investor relations and wearing both of those hats, as well as occasionally the IT department, maybe a little bit of HR. When you're part of a startup company, you have to wear a lot of hats. So yeah, it evolved, it evolved quickly into much more than just a part-time social media specialist, but I'm so glad it did. It really has changed my life. I actually didn't like real estate investing. I had a very bad impression of it when I first started working with her. And so I joked with her that if she could convert me, she could convert anybody, because I did have such a negative attitude towards it. And so, it's really interesting now. I'm incredibly passionate about it, and it's really revolutionized my life.
Oh, that's awesome. So if somebody
Mhm.
wanted to get in touch with you or the firm, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, people are free to email me directly. My email is Jeannette. It's JeAnnette at bluelake-capital.com. And our website is bluelake-capital.com.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us we haven't covered today?
I guess the only thing that I would probably conclude with is, life rarely, goes according to plan, but I think that if you learn to be bold, if you learn to get out of your comfort zone, you can really create an extraordinary life, even in the midst of a lot of challenges and hardship. So I think that just maintaining perspective and being brave are very important and something I'd encourage people to do throughout their entire life.
That's awesome. Well, Jeannette, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure learning more about you and your very vibrant personality, and can really see why you do so well.
Thank you.
You bet. This has been Mornings with Michael of Small Business Saturday Leaders. We look forward to seeing you guys next week and see where the markets are going to take us. We hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll talk to you later.